Call the meeting to order.
I'll flip you. 5:59 is going to do it?
6 o'clock.
I
We'll
guess
come to
6
order
o'clock.
at 6 o'clock Tamworth time, which is different than
Everywhere else.
Greenwich. Yeah. Appreciate you being here. The first order of business is supposed to be a couple of appointments. But since you gentlemen are here, for Glenn, you want to,
What do we got?
I mean, you know, we didn't know if we were gonna do department heads, reports, et cetera, but.
I don't have anything. Other than having a great day.
All right, it's not cold now. Richard?
This one good, we're still, again, pretty much finished up with the storm damage, all the trees and the chipping and that, and doing a lot of that. Started doing some roadside clearing today, places we can do it, so before we get a lot of snow, stuff we can't during the summertime with cleaning that off the edges of the road. Still get a little bit of storm cleanup, though. We had a lot of trees come down, a lot of damage.
A lot of
And we'll
them.
still have some in the spring to clean up too, but other than that, it's going pretty good. It's a nice time break in the weather.
If it's lying on a road, either close to or beyond a drainage ditch, that's, if somebody wants to pick it up to.
The landowner has the first right.
Right, and how long do we wait for?
Well, we usually pick a lot of it up. If nobody knows, we pick it up and take it back to the town garage and use it for a furnace. Unless the landowner happily says, you know, I want it.
Yeah.
Is usually what it is. That's all I play by ear, because if they want it, they'll come take it. Usually the person will.
Just figuring with the way the winter's going, you know, the sap's gonna run the day after tomorrow. And, you know, sometimes those folks will use wet, or recently down pine to.
Yeah, not the one time.
Right.
Dry. I mean, most of what you're cleaning up is the big limbs and stuff
The
like that.
big limbs
Yeah.
and the big pines and all that,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's pretty well cleaned up. We gotta just, probably another half a day of cleaning that stuff up. And we're gonna start going along with the roadside chipping that we can do to get that done.
And if you're taking trees down, you always offer it to the landowner
We,
if they're there.
we usually just leave it there, and if they don't pick it up, we'll, you know, we'll go back in the day to and pick it up. But usually, when we're in front of somebody's house on their property chipping, they'll come and take it, and leave it for us, and we do.
Glenn and Rick have been showing off their pile of chips.
Yeah.
That's a good deal. Parker?
Basketball is going, we've got our teams practicing, there's 5, 6 girls practicing right now, pickleball after that. Members aren't great right now for some of the activities, but that's traditionally true in December, right before Christmas, they generally pick up after the first of the year. We're not quite having fever mode yet, but as we get more into winter, they want to get out of the house and do some exercise, and our numbers will start picking up when they come back after Christmas break. So,
Chief Colcourt?
Fire department, everything's going fine. I ran out of time, so I'll get you November stats. EMD, we finally got the finished copy for proofing. I finished that for the hazardous mitigation plan. So I'll send that back to June McGarnell Maps.
Did you read it?
Yes.
I mean, you've read it more than once, and I've read it more than once, but.
I only found 2 things I highlighted and put a note.
I mean, it's 180 pages, you know.
Yeah, 186.
Yeah, something like that. So it's gonna take me, you know, maybe that's how I'll spend Christmas.
I didn't find anything, it was just grammar stuff that I found.
Good deal. Chief Littlefield?
Good evening. Guys gave you the October and November stats.
Yeah.
Other than that, things are business as usual, plugging away.
Fair enough. Friends, to the friends of the townhouse?
The floors have been finished downstairs. They're curing right now. Nobody can go in until,
Can't go in and skate on the floor?
no,
No skate.
so,
And no cleats, no
Yeah.
ice cleats.
on the
It's gonna
floor.
be tough to enforce in this, you know.
Well,
You
there'll
gotta,
be a chair there for people to sit down.
okay. Barefoot.
Well, they don't have to be barefoot, they're just, those
Have we,
micro spikes on the floor don't do much on
have
time.
we covered the department chairman in record of time. Mr. Cludier, we have you and your company. And, Mr. Cargill and Mr. Cludier have an appointment to discuss this, and we probably got them sitting in the wrong place, but if you can't hear them, raise your hand and they'll speak right up.
Thank you for scheduling us early. So the purpose of this evening's appointment was to update the selectmen from our last meeting. There were several questions that were posed then, some other activities we were supposed to perform. First amongst that would have been the inspections have been completed on the septic system. So the three firms who were employed to conduct the inspections were first White Mountain Survey and Engineering. Mark Lucy from that office was on site. We opened all of the tanks to inspect the tanks, opened all of the distribution boxes, splitter boxes, confirmed that all of the flows to all of the beds were equal and balanced, that there was no sign of any unwanted material in there. Mark also conducted a smoke test to confirm that the ventilation system was drafting properly. And everything that they inspected, again, was in good working order. They also provided a draft of a report on that, and we can have them forward that directly to the Selectmen Town Office if that's how you would like that to be handled. They also included some recommendations in there, same recommendations as we had 2 years ago from Woodard and Curran, improvements of the system, primarily on the alarm detection side. The recommendation is to remove the, I think there's a flashing red light and a buzzer. They would rather have that be something to the cell, similar to a cell phone where a message is immediately forwarded to the police station so it's documented and folks can be notified. The second round of inspections was performed by Lamprey Septic over in Moulton Borough. They tested all of the controls, all of the floats, all of the alarms and relays and such to confirm that was all in good working order. They did find that there was one float that wasn't triggering the alarm properly. They tell us that's been repaired, but we have not gotten a report from them yet. They're not the most prompt for that type of work. So our understanding is it has been verbally, our understanding is that it's been completed. We haven't gotten that report from them in writing. Then the third round of inspections was performed by Bellamore Septic in Bedford, New Hampshire. They power flushed all of the 8-inch mains under Main Street, Greg's Way, anything that was 8-inch main. And then they were followed behind by Underground Testing Services. I think they're also out of Bedford. And they video inspected all of the 8-inch mains throughout the system. They've recorded all of their work on a compact disc, so that's available for records as well. They did not note any problems, any obstructions, any defects, other than one small point directly in front of the Congregational Church. There was a small deflection on that Schedule 35 PVC pipe. More than likely, that's been there since the initial backfill. When we took out the old septic beds, we found lots of large chunks of asphalt and other rocks in there that weren't appropriate for backfill. So it's more than likely that's all that happened here, as the backfill was a little bit less than ideally conducted. So again, all of that is complete. We'll have all of those reports and can forward those to the select board for records. And again, where we have the electronic version, that will be made available as well. So I think we're in very good shape there. I'm going to turn this next to Ken, because I think he can do a better job of explaining are follow-up to questions that were posed at the planning board meeting a couple weeks ago regarding the distinction between a municipal system and a private system as it relates to subdivision and expansion within the town. So, Ken, if you can take that one, please.
So, yeah, one of the issues we discovered is that when anybody subdivides property, they have to obtain approval from both the town of Tamworth's planning board and New Hampshire DES. And DES standards are very rigid. They don't bend much at all. The village has looked at the potential of doing some cluster development in the village, some smaller houses closer together. And that doesn't work with DES's subdivision standards. Even though we've got an off-site system, they won't accept it. If, however, the municipality owns the system, DES then drops its jurisdiction. It doesn't take jurisdiction over the subdivision. So if the municipality takes ownership of the system, then property owners in the village don't have to worry about New Hampshire DES subdivision approval. It just goes to the municipality.
Ken, does that work if a village district or precinct is formed for the?
It would have to be a municipal entity, so a village district would be a municipal corporation, yeah.
But it wouldn't be necessarily the municipality running it, it might be the commissioners of that district running it. Would DES back off on that?
Yeah, because the village district is treated the same as the
Okay.
town.
Thank you.
Although the village district form is essentially identical to a commission arrangement anyway. The other thing which you can't really get specific answers on is risk exposure. I've called around, and the reality is that no one can even think of a septic system or sewer system causing liability. There's tons of them in New Hampshire. Local government center can't think of any, so there isn't out there. One of the things I was able to do was to talk generally about the type of coverage available to municipality and compare that to the coverage that Tamworth Village Association can buy. Any municipal coverage is far, far, far more robust and better for the community than a private entity can buy. So there'd be a huge advance in the risk protection by going to the municipality, and that said that there seems to be very little exposure. If it goes outside of the insurance coverage, the statute we're looking at, 149E, for a district, a commission arrangement, captures the liability with the users of that system, okay? And if it went over, you know, if it was a big number and you couldn't get it right away, you could bond that off, but the liability would be the owners of that system. So I think under the approach we're looking at, the liability is contained to the owners of that system no matter what. And on top of that, you have much better coverage than is available otherwise.
You're saying owners of the system, well, the town would own the system, you mean the
The
users
users,
of the
yeah,
system?
the
Okay,
current
I
owners,
just-
which then become, yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that
yeah.
that was
It'll
understood.
be the people served by the system.
You said that DES won't approve someone wanting to subdivide and use that system.
Well, they will approve, but you have to meet their density standards. So if you're looking at a clustered subdivision, for instance, you know, in
Right.
town of Conway, for instance, if you're on community water and sewer, you need 20,000 square feet for unit one and then 10,000 square feet for each additional unit, okay? That's a very common approach for village development. DES standards, that's way too dense for DES standards. They still look at septic loading capacity, even if there's an off-site system line, okay? The only time they abandon jurisdiction is if that system is owned by a municipality. And I didn't bring my copy of the RSA with me, but I can provide that to you.
Planning board can waive some requirements, but only pertinent to their subdivision.
Right, so the planning board could then adopt its own, could modify the subdivision regulations for those parts of the town that are served by municipal water or municipal sewer to allow a little more compact development and better use of the land.
But absent that, they can't override or change DES's.
Well, what happened is you comply with the town, but then in order to go on record with your subdivision, you have to go up to DES and you'd lose it, so.
And is there any further follow-through on the question I've asked several times about the requirement for people to hook up to the system if they're within so many feet of it?
Yes. In fact, I thought we'd gotten back to you, but I researched that and actually spoke to Matt about it. That can be waived. There is no mandatory hookup. Okay?
In what regard, who gets the waiving authority? And how would that work?
The commission has the,
The PUC?
No, the sewer commissioners.
Okay.
Have the ability to, I don't want to say the word waive because that's wrong, but they can dictate who hooks up. It doesn't have to be everybody within the system. For instance, some users are offline. They can stay offline, or the commission can say you've got to connect, but it's their option. It's not mandatory within the service area.
So it depends on how the commission sets up its rules regarding the Tamworth septic.
Right.
So it's almost like a water system. You have to have certain rules, who pays, who doesn't, if you can put in your own well. So you're saying
Right.
it's the same way that way. Once this is taken over, then a set of rules would have to be written or adopt the rules that you have in place.
Yes, and most commonly how that's done is if you've got your own functional system, keep using it, but if it fails, then you've got to connect. You just don't put in a new one.
Right.
I know that some of the concerns was Greg's Way with this, I don't know if it's already planning work has been done or surveying or something, but there's been discussion in town about some increased density of housing and along that road. And I assume that given the proximity to the river, I would think that there's limited areas that could drive their own septic system.
Right, and that actually, I touched on it, but I'm not very close to it, but they were looking at what's called a zero lot line arrangement there. And the town could approve it, but DES won't.
Right.
If the town takes over the sewer system, then DES drops jurisdiction and the town can approve it.
Unless the town or the district commissioners don't waive any of the, tell them they have to hook up to the system.
If you're that close to the river, you probably have to connect anyway.
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty close out there.
And
So-
again, those lots, excuse me, those lots are currently connected to the system. We've spoken to the potential developers on that and indicated, yes, there is capacity to the system, but again, we don't have any authority to overrule DES on this other issue.
If you'd like, I can outline some of these issues to town council so that, provide him with the RSAs we've looked at so he can give the town some feedback directly on those topics.
Be great, because I think we're having a big public hearing on the 6th of January, which is not that far.
Ninth.
Ninth, okay, well, that's close.
Do you mind if I give Matt a call and just run this through him?
Sure.
Okay.
I think it would be good to have him hearing, as they say, we all need the same information to go forward.
Right.
Can I ask, when's your fiscal year run? Are you
June
on a
30.
June 30th? Could, for this meeting of the 6th, can you give us an update of the finances?
Oh, sure.
Or the 9th, whenever our meeting is, give us an update of the finances, because I'm sure what you had last time and what you've spent to inspect the system, that there's a change?
Yeah, I mean, right now, if we haven't received the invoices yet, but hopefully by then we would, and if it's not paid, at least be able to reflect it as a payable.
Right,
Okay.
thank you.
The meeting that these folks are referencing is January 9th at 6 PM at the Brett School, which is a joint public informational hearing from, by the planning board and the Board of Selectmen. The town moderator is going to run that in the interest of, so not one of us doesn't have to do it. And the public will have a chance to ask questions, and there'll be information available, because there in fact will be a warrant article either submitted by the petition, or by the selectmen, or by somebody, but there will be a warrant article to transfer ownership of that, because the folks, the TVA has said that it's untenable to ask inexperienced, or I don't want to say less than knowledgeable, because they know a whole bunch about it, but and the commission is, if and when, it might well come from users, but the warrant article will speak to transferring it to some other kind of an organization that would take control of the thing and manage the funds and the billing and et cetera. Questions for the gentleman?
I also have one other follow-up. Dan's not here this evening, but at either the last meeting, or perhaps it was the one before then, apologize, I don't remember exactly when it was, but he asked, he said, do you have a plan B on this one, if you recall that? And at the time I said, we really haven't thought that through. We still don't have a plan B, but I've done a little more research on our side, and in the interest of full disclosure, I think I should share that with you as well. As of March of 2019, we have a 5-member board for the TVA. My term expires, and I'm not interested in continuing on there. Joanne Rainville also has her term expire. Steve, I understand your term expires as well. Carl Bear, who's been associated either on the board continuously or intermittently for 18 years, is also looking to step down. So as of the end of March, the TVA will not have a quorum. We have not been able to identify anyone else interested in coming on. No, I'm not going to tell you we've done an exhaustive survey of every user to see if someone's interested in coming on board. But basically, I think what would happen is at the end of March, the TVA would probably, absent a quorum, be dormant once again, as it was for several years, up until 3 years ago when we reawakened it. That doesn't mean the end of the system, certainly. The license agreement between the town and the TVA provides for the town to be able to step in and directly oversee any maintenance and repairs that are necessary, or the town could undertake some method of reorganizing and reconstituting the TVA board. But at this point, we don't have any reason to believe that we'll have interested parties in March to continue the work that we've done after the TVA again was dormant for about 5 years. So I think it's important for us to share that with you as well.
That's sort of Plan B.
Plan B looks like Plan Z,
So,
as in zero. And rightly so, those folks have worked long and hard, and I understand it.
I guess they've seen how much fun I've had and they don't want to do it.
Yeah. Join in. Do we have more questions?
So, the TVA not only oversees the septic system, but the TVA was also an association in the town regarding the town central, am I clear?
Again, I wasn't here in 2000, but when I read the mission or the Articles of Association, the broader mission, as I read it, was to engage in activities and projects that would benefit the community at large, the village specifically, and I don't see any reason for anything there to change. It is a 501c3, I always get that, organization. If it doesn't have any activity, I don't know how long it can maintain that status.
Well, that was my point. If you've got all these people resigning and you haven't got anybody there, should then that also dissolve for the town as well as just the septic system is what I'm wondering.
And that's beyond my pay
But
grade.
that's something for us to determine, because,
If you take over the sewer system, you will not be taking over TVA.
no, but what I'm saying is he's now
The
saying
entity.
that there's 4 members of an entity, the 501(c), that have no desire to continue. At the same time, it might be worthwhile to say, then let's end it, because as you said, it went dormant for 5 years. It came back to life when there were issues with the system, not with the town, not with the main street.
I would make a distinction that the lack of interest, I think, was primarily on oversight of the sewer system, taking care of the sewer system, having to deal with the collections and so forth. I didn't, and again, I don't want to speak for others, but I never got the sense that there was a lack of interest in the community and related projects. At our most recent TVA meeting, in fact, 2 TVA meetings, we've touched briefly on the fact that there may be a successor mission for the TVA, given its tax exempt status, its ability to apply for and receive grants for related activity. So there may well be a role for a TVA successor or subsequent iteration that returns to that original focus of what activities are beneficial to the community at large, but not to be entrusted with the technical responsibility of oversight of a municipal septic system.
Because it's 2 separate entities, even though it falls under the same initials, and that's what I wanted to get straight in my head.
But the problem you may have is with your IRS 501(c)(394), whichever numbers they are, without a board, does that automatically disappear?
Again, beyond my pay scale. What we've gotten to is the point that we've gotten the system repaired. We recognize that the TVA just isn't capable of ongoing oversight of the municipal system. The broader issue of the TVA is...
Given the mission of the TVA, I would think that you could maintain the nonprofit, or they could maintain the nonprofit thing. And you know, Chicago Village Association, they go and they run some events that, and TVA's run some, or take part at least in some village events.
If the TVA modified its bylaws so that it was not restricting membership to only those connected to a septic system,
Right.
I think the ability to recruit and attract other folks, civic-minded projects, I don't think that's a bad idea. But again, right now, they are pretty much on just those parallel tracks. The septic system is the TVA, and the TVA's only activity is the septic system.
And I think that's important for people to understand that when we're going forward. The septic system is one entity and the TVA is another entity. But again, I guess with the bylaws, you're right, the 501(c) would have to change a little bit, is what I'm taking away from you.
Yeah, I mean, TVA is an entity and it owns the sewer system, just like I own 2 cars. You can sell one car and keep the other one. So if the town exercises its option and acquires the system, TVA had given the system up. Its corporate existence and its 501(c)(3) status continues. And, you know, people are interested, in fact, I think it has more appeal without the sewer system than it does with the sewer system. I think, you know, yeah.
But to make sure all that is pulled out, what I'm
Right,
saying is they probably
right.
want to do a rewrite to revitalize the 2 separate entities.
But you're saying right now that your TVA membership is only those that are involved with the septic
Right.
system.
Right,
So
so
you're
it
not
has to be
saying
a
that
rewrite.
your TVA has a broader mission because it can only be those members that are,
No,
Part of
no,
it?
the way the articles are set up is the sewer people, the sewer users are mandatory.
right,
People who want to support the village can join,
okay, all right.
but it's not compulsory.
Okay, I thought there was, you weren't allowed unless you were on the sewer.
No.
That's not my mistake, thank you.
It's hard to get people to join when it's a sewer though.
And for folks who are interested in the progress here, I'm sure that January 9th, you go home tonight and think of a question and jot it down. There'll be ample information provided at that meeting for all of us. I don't know if we're duty bound to hold a public hearing after that, separate from the planning board, because, but we'll consider any warrant that we have an opinion on in a public meeting, whether or not we're required to have a public hearing or not.
We'll have a hearing on the warrant, and it'll be on the warrant.
Yeah, so we might do that. Further questions? If you need information, write it down, and it'll be there for us on January 9th, 6 p.m. at the
Well, we will distribute prior to that. We are creating a fact sheet, so much of this information, who owns the system, who's responsible for paying for the system's upkeep and so forth, the outsourcing of all of the billing and maintenance and so forth, that is all explained in the fact sheet that will be distributed to all of the members of the TVA, since we already have all of their addresses and contact information. But we also expect to have those available for handout, not only at the hearing, but at several places in town prior to that, so folks have some additional time before the hearing to familiarize themselves. But we're not planning on distributing anything until the holidays are over. I don't think we'd get folks' attention Christmas Eve.
You might notice that Mr. Cloutier said fact sheet, not plural. And that's for people like me. who don't
One page.
understand. There it is. Further questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Most appreciative of your long and hard work on a tough project.
Especially appreciate you not leaving us till the end tonight.
Yeah, well, next time. The Advisory Budget Committee.
We understand that this detailed report is extensive and people need to remember this is just possible recommendations for the selectmen. Some of our recommendations for 2019 are the same that were recommended in 2018, and we feel they still need to be addressed so they stop impacting the tax rate. We strive to focus our attention on the financial works of each department and leave out the personal aspect. Our information came from department heads, the town office, and prior year's town's reports. We would like to stay informed of any further meetings regarding the budgets so that we may be available for any questions about our recommendations that you have.
Your work is available online on the town website. I would hope that by the end of the week we have a copy in the hands of the Cook Library and of the Chicago Library. Full disclosure, I've read everything, all the recommendations twice, but I haven't finished the minutes yet. And I imagine that other folks are probably gonna, do a couple of readings. I think I speak for all of us that we appreciate the time, energy, effort, and product that went in. And speaking of additional, a week from tonight, some department heads will meet with 5:30? 5 p.m. Some department heads will meet with the selectmen to discuss their budget. And by that time, we will have read the whole thing. And as I understand that the department heads have all have a copy and a copy available to them. And this will be one of the, this information will be part of the discussion. And at another date, some other department heads, but I think we're gonna finish it up well before budget hearing. And then, there's a budget hearing. The selectmen will propose a budget, but that's not final until after the budget hearing. And there again, all that information will be available to the residents who come. And over the last 2 years, 1 year, there's a substantial amount of time between when the selectmen approve a budget to propose and the budget hearing, so that folks can have that paperwork that will also be there. So the information from the advisory committee, what the selectmen come up, I'm a native-born speaker of this language, what the selectmen come up with in meeting with the department heads, and then that'll be available to everybody, and there'll be folks by the time budget hearing comes, which is in fact a public hearing, noticed that way. People will probably have an awful lot of information to make a decision on. Of course, that means David's going to find some money that we tried to sneak in there. But, and if he doesn't, John Wheeler will, and if neither of them does, somebody else will. He thinks he will. Anything further?
When you're ready, I have a comment.
Sir?
A little over a year ago, the taxpayers in the town of Tamworth suggested we form a budget advisory committee, and the selectmen chose to do that. And the people who are on that budget committee, I think they did a fantastic job. I sat here at all the selectmen's meetings, or 99% of them, and listened to what they proposed, their suggestions, and very disappointingly, the selectmen didn't back any one of them. I have a scorecard that I made up a couple of weeks ago, and every single suggestion that they made, the selectmen did not back them. They voted to just ignore the budget committee. This year, the budget committee, a little bit personally involved, again spent a lot of time on the budget, went line by line, and they've made some recommendations. I am hoping that the select board will heed some of those recommendations.
I think we'll heed every single one of them. And
I hope so.
In discussions with the, in our what they have us read through that big book several times before we sit down with department heads. And then the department heads, in fact, will heed some of those. Don't know if we're going to incorporate them. I don't know what we're going to incorporate the absent.
I sincerely hope that you're going to do that. And as Cassie said, right from the very beginning, this isn't a personal thing. We're looking at the finances of the town of Tamworth and looking to save some money on our taxes. Something has to happen here.
Yes, that's true.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
I guess I'll say the opposition to that, what everybody else probably wants to say from the department head standpoint. I do applaud the work of the budget committee. That being said, I wasn't happy last year with misinformation that was put out, and I'm not happy this year with misinformation that's put out. And quite frankly, I'm quite offended. And one of the biggest cuts in there was a cut that was attempted from the floor last year, or this March, and the town voted unanimously to say yes, minus a vote. So why would we go back and continue to try and beat a dead horse of cutting a position or whatever it might be? The other thing I look at, it's like, I don't know where the rationale of the recommendations come from. I would have liked to have had a follow-up meeting to have talked about the recommendations, to clarify what I believe is misinformation. I look at a lot of other ones, training seems to be cut out of everybody's. Training is one of the most important things we do. Not just for my department, but even Darlene, whoever's department. It establishes best practices, procedures, and reduces liability. Looking at some of the budgets, training doesn't even cover the drive there. I don't really understand. I understand the need to cut money to save taxes. I get that. But I don't understand the rationale behind the procedure of this. I don't understand the rationale behind some of the cuts. And I really feel that it's a lot of misinformation that gets put out there.
When the departments and the selectmen get together to go over budget, it's a public meeting, and any particular recommendation or any particular suggestion that we have is, that's the time to.
I understand that, but you just told Bruno that you would heed, the
Well,
advice of the
Well, to heed them means, I'm not
I
going to
understand,
take it
but,
throw it on the floor without
the
reading.
reason it didn't happen, according to the scorecard, the reason it didn't happen last year is because of this same problem that's going to happen this year.
Well, I would hope that there's enough.
Granted, it's a different board, I understand that, but
Bottom line is the voters of the town of Tamworth can decide how they want to spend their money. And if they want to increase their budget and increase their taxes, that's up to them. I know that what I'm going to look at in this budget is any way I can to reduce the budget to save on the tax dollars, because there are some people in this community that cannot afford to have an increase in their taxes. They're swapping food for medicine for heat, and that doesn't bode well for their future. And we have to pay attention, and if we as a board can sit here with the department heads and say, what can you do to help us out? A letter was sent out to all of the department heads stating the situation we're in. If we'd gone ahead and just done the, okay, here's what it cost last year, the tax bill would be $2 more per thousand. That was the bottom line. We chose to take quite a big chunk out of the unfunded, undesignated fund balance. We took $700,000 out, and the tax rate went up 36 cents. So it's not like this board's sitting here going, we've got a lot of extra money to play with. We don't. And I've done some calculations, which I'll be glad to share with anybody that wants to have them, about where we're at. We only get about a 1% increase in the value in our town. And that doesn't amount to much in tax dollars. And our income is just not coming in. You can't keep spending and not have income coming in and expect your tax rate to stay level or go down. That's just the bottom line. So this is going to be a year where I think everyone's going to have to really work real close to the bone. And that means you may not have everything you want. That's my opinion.
My point is that the budget committee last year and this year went line for line for line. And no offense, but the select board doesn't have the time between, you're running the whole town. The budget committee took that every single person's budget and went line by line, and whether they eliminated to a better way to buy pens or pads or whatever the case might be, I'm asking you to show some respect to these people that put all this time into it and look at what they've done, why they've come to this conclusion. It's nothing personal. That's the first thing that Casey said.
You know,
it's not personal.
Not
it's
for
financial.
Nothing, not for nothing, but I take a little bit of umbrage about the respect thing, because I don't think I was disrespectful to any advisory committee. And somebody told me I was because I didn't agree with a particular thing. That's not disrespect, it's just I'm sitting here, I got a fiduciary responsibility, I got a public health and safety responsibility, I got all that stuff.
That's what I just said. You're running the whole town. They took this last year and this year, have taken this stuff line by line by line.
And we'll go, and I think we all have, I don't know if Dan got his, he's out of town, but well, I've read it, every recommendation twice so far, and I'll read it well again, and I'll discuss that. There'll be a discussion when every department chairman.
That's all I'm
comes
asking. Thank you very much.
in. And I understand it's not personal, nor are our decisions personal to anybody there. So, yeah, I'm just, the disrespect thing, I would hope that we've been working, the selectmen I've served with in the last 2.5 years have been working very hard on demonstrating respect to people who show up here.
Totally agree.
We're trying to, people who do volunteers, we've said the volunteers run this town. Without them, we're on the ground. We're belly up, it's over. And I would hope that we have not shown disrespect, even though somebody.
As far as I'm concerned, there's no disrespect. I'm going to reiterate what Willie said. It's getting harder and harder for the older people in this town to pay their taxes. Something has to happen.
It's more than the older people.
Thank you. Again.
On the part of volunteers, volunteers should be strictly volunteers. They should not be getting compensated for their volunteer work, except for fire and rescue.
Yeah.
But, that was one thing. And the other thing is, as far as Dana's comment of, the administrators that the town voted on last year. Yeah, I voted for that administrator assistant, but it seems like it's been amended. When it was voted last year at town hall, it was like 5 days a week, a few hours a day. I mean, 5 days a week, yeah, a few hours a day. Now it's been cut down to like 2 days, 12 hours, and it's just,
I want to clarify that because that's completely bogus information, or misinformation, excuse me. But first of all, I set the schedule, so I say what days people work. That position is, since we voted in the budget in March, that position has never been short of 24 hours per week. So whether it's broken up over a 2-day or 3-day period, it was never proposed as a 5-day period, 5 days. So
I don't mean, I don't want to.
yeah, the amount of hours has never changed.
I don't want, but that's specific, that issue would be something we discuss with a department head, based on the recommendation that's there.
but I mean, when it's voted in at town meeting for a set amount of time or
It's
set
not
amount of
set-
days.
It's not voted that way. The money is voted for that.
Wait,
It's not, the
folks,
scheduling
wait.
is not, the scheduling is up to the department head. And
Can-
just to be
Then that
perfectly,
might be
just to
my
be
fault.
perfectly clear here.
Because when
If-
I went to town meeting, that was my
Folks,
understanding.
That's a specific issue that we have to sit down and talk to the department head with, and that particular thing is in the recommendations. You know, yeah.
I just want, getting off this, it's been an experience, believe me. Is everybody getting a raise this year?
We haven't discussed
We
it.
haven't, well, we discussed it, but we have not voted.
Well, I'd like to know if anybody here would give up their raise to keep something in their budget. It's a thought.
And department heads might pick up on that, might.
I mean, your raises, salaries are one of the biggest things in your budget. It affects Medicare,
Sure.
insurance, everything else.
Right.
So you tally that up, you might come up with $5,000 and be able to apply it to something else.
And that's part of what this whole budget process is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, okay, where can we take a little from here and put it over here to make this work, and take some from here over to here, we'll cut this out because we don't need it this year. You know, I mean, so it's a process. It's not just a, here's the budget, like it or lump it, you know, that's not the way it's gotta work. And,
I'm not looking for anybody to lose their job, but when you're looking at that budget and you had to come up with $250,000 to cut from somewhere, we did the best we could. Bottom line.
And, sure, and you came up with stuff that we probably, you know, unless we went through the exact same process individually or as a board, as Bruno says, we got other stuff we're supposed to do, but unless we did the same process, that those suggestions or recommendations wouldn't have come up because nobody would be available to scour the thing through. I mean, they would have come up sooner or later at a meeting, but not all of them,
But I do have to stress the phone policy. That is one of my big bugaboos. You really have to look into.
Before we do specific recommendations here, and, you know, what we'd like to do is make sure everybody knows what we're gonna do when, and all of that stuff will be posted on the calendar, and I don't think, we don't have anything scheduled beyond next Thursday.
Just a regular meeting on the 27th, which we probably will bring department heads in that day as well. I just don't know who.
Okay, and that's gonna be late at night too.
And that will be, it'll be on the agenda though, who's coming in,
Good deal.
so.
And, you know, if you have questions that you might not be able to attend or have a concern, don't hesitate to write them on a piece of paper and then put them in. I mean, we can't, you know,
The other thing, I'm sorry, but being on this committee has been an experience, and we're talking about respecting other people. I know of people that have gotten phone calls regarding this budget, and they have not been very pleasant. And I think that is very uncalled for.
People called you? Called?
Not me. If they did.
Goes both ways, right?
This is, the budget vote is no means by personal. My opinion, the only reason I voted no for the police budget was the percentage increase. I'm perfectly fine with the police department keeping the administrative assistant. In my personal opinion, I think public safety is one of the last budgets you want to cut. I also want to talk about the capital improvement program. My personal opinion, I feel like this plan does not work, just based on the sole fact that we set a rate where we want to not raise over $1 million each year. But it seems to me like every time a voter comes up, stands on the floor, turns something down, blows it off the next year, and then what happens? It goes to the next year, it goes to the next year. In my personal opinion, I truly feel the reason why we have $1.3 million for the CIP is because of that. I think we should go back to capital reserves just based on that fact, the fact that voters keep putting something off. I feel it screws up the capital improvement program, and I don't think it works.
We differ on that,
Because if you put something off, you're going to affect someone else's budget that's waiting in 2021. And hey, no, now you have to wait because the voter turned this thing down. How's that fair?
You're right about the putting it off is sometimes a foolhardy thing to do.
And if capital reserves are so bad, why do we have a capital reserve for the bridge? Is that the only? I don't understand why we have that, but we don't have anything else.
I voted for capital improvement for the bridges because FEMA money comes late. And there are people here, if the bridge is gone, the people don't have access to the house, or rescue, fire, police don't have access to the house without a, So to have a capital, to have a chunk of money for bridge emergency, if we could rely on FEMA to come up the next day because it's a health and safety issue, then we would not need that one either. The difficulty with those accounts is the loss in buying power. The longer you hold it, the more you lose.
So is it fair for the taxpayer to raise $350,000 for a fire truck? Or you could have capital reserve where you put off $50,000 every year?
You're still raising the money. If you ask.
But it doesn't
voter
affect
over
the
here
tax rate.
In year one, to put $50,000 into the bank,
Yeah.
he doesn't get the use of that fire truck for 5 years at least. So is it fair to that voter to put his tax money away? I'd rather have you ask me for what you need in the year you need it, instead of asking me to bankroll a savings account. So I don't have the use of my money while you're holding.
But capital improvement that's an issue.
I do think something does need to get addressed on like the fact that we keep pushing things off. I think that screws the tax rate up.
I understand how you feel about that. Jim?
I don't know why I raised my hand first, but just a quick comment on that. I think the capital improvement thing works until you have to bond something. Once you bond something, anything you've made up by not losing money to inflation on saved money, you are way going to spend more than that on your bond costs. Anyway, that's not what I had my hand up for initially. I was curious, the recommendations and whatnot from the advisory budget committee, were they made before, or was the advisory budget committee aware of the issue? We have I don't know, I've heard the number $800,000 deficit thing.
700,000.
700,000.
No.
Okay.
They found out the same time you guys found out, when we found out.
Well, I just saw their report this morning, and I was just wondering if they were, because curiously enough, on the fire side, Board of Fire Wards and the fire chief were made aware of that deficit thing. So at the last fire wards meeting, we sat down, the Board of Fire Wards sat down with the chief, and we tried to work on getting, see where we could push something off, rather than improve something there, that sort of thing. And curiously enough, that what we came out with last Thursday isn't much different than what these folks in the advisory budget committee, within $1,000 of what they came up with. So I'm like, were we So that's kind of interesting.
We've got to work together.
And on that same note, is the vote of the Advisory Budget Committee going to show up this year? It seems like last year it didn't, and somebody on the floor.
Yeah,
It
no,
has to be a different structure for a budget committee.
Right, they're
Right,
not-
it's not an official budget committee.
Right.
It's
So it
advisory.
doesn't,
Okay, so it doesn't show up.
it does not show on the warrant.
They're advisory to the Board of Selectmen,
Right.
whereas they're not.
Because what I was going to say is if it was, and they voted no on the fire budget, and I say, because of the deficit thing, we've done some adjusting and tried to cut, and we're down to what they want. I was hoping they could change it to yes, so on the floor I wouldn't have to stand up. Say something.
You know, we have to be careful of what we push ahead. We cut budgets, or we can take stuff and push it ahead. But that has that effect that Zach referred to, you know, sooner or later it catches up with you.
Well, as soon as you bond something, any money you've saved on inflation, it's got to be, if it's a bond of any size, that's gone. I mean, you would have been way better off to do capital reserves and put your money in the bank. I mean,
But we're not bonding $1 million every year.
no.
Cashing $1 million every year, because we're spending that money. We're going to spend that money over the time, instead of putting it in the bank and losing money as a capital reserve. We say, tell us the day you need it, and that year we'll try and plan to spend that $1 million on the items that are needed.
And I think generally that, I would agree that works, but if I look, whenever I look at the transfer station bond and the school bond, and I say, I can remember being at meetings where we tried to set aside in capital reserve for those things. If we had done that, we would have paid a lot less in interest on the bond than we ever lost to inflation. I think overall, we would have saved a boatload of money. That's why I say, I think it works until you have to bond something, and then you probably should have gone the other way.
I'm going to address the budget committee because I did serve on it last year, and we did talk about starting up a budget committee. One of the problems we had last year is every time we contacted somebody about serving on the budget committee, their answer was, no, it's too much work for very little return. Budget committee members are hated, plain and simple. But it's their responsibility to bring this kind of conversation. Yes, they may look at things. I know last year I talked about cutting training. I train, I have to train for my job. But the point of it is you try and look, it sounds crazy, but you're trying to nickel and dime a multi-million-dollar budget. What happened is I sat here with all the selectmen. We went department heads to department heads. They defended why. I defended why not. The selectmen went with the why. They felt that was a stronger defense. But what it does is it opens up conversation. But if you go back, because there was a period of time we didn't have a budget committee, advisory or any other way, and you go back and read the town reports when they had a budget committee, the number one parting comment on every budget committee report and a town report is, we did the work, we opened the dialogue, but nothing got accomplished. So when you take on a job like the budget committee, you know it's a committee that you're just bringing a different set of eyes and you're bringing up conversation. It's not carved in gold, and it's up to the selectmen and the department heads to work together to set a mutual budget that everybody in this town can live with. So I want to thank, again, the budget committee because they took the time, effort, and energy to go through a budget. They made cuts, some of them the same cuts we projected the year before. Who knows? But we're in a different financial situation this year, and we will work with the department heads to see if we can alleviate that financial situation. That's all it amounts to. And I think they should be, again, thanked as any other volunteer committee because they spent a lot of time, energy, and effort reviewing stuff.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I just think that this, the undesignated fund, when last year you took 400 and this year you took 7, that's $1.1 million.
That's correct.
Trying to balance it so that your taxes didn't go up. But 2 more years, you'll have no money left in there to take out to try to keep the taxes low. Somewhere along the line, the money's got to stop being spent. You're not getting enough in.
One of the reasons that I voted for that, as a matter of fact, ran my mouth about it and asked the people I was serving with at the time to pump that up a little bit was that account is supposed to be used to reduce property taxes. And I've only been at this 5.5 or however long, 5 3/4 years. But for 3 of those years, we had a chunk of money sitting there while a number of folks in this town had a real difficult time paying. So to let it sit there, and I understand you want an emergency fund and you want something to fall back on, but the whole purpose of the thing is to reduce taxes, especially in lean times, because we run the state on a property tax, and I understand that's what the folks want to do. I think a property tax tends to hit those of us who have had some bad financial years as opposed to those of us who have hit good financial years, but, you know, I could be wrong on that. So now we're down to, I think it's between 5 and 17% was supposed to hold on? We're at 16%, 15.5%.
We were.
But, you know, for years, it was sitting there doing.
1 year.
Now it's down 10.5, which is, you know, 5%.
Well, I think it's just scary that this last year and this year, if you have 2 more years like that, you have nothing to offset it.
We can't do it.
It would be gone.
We can't do it. And next year, we might be back here with another 36-cent raise or a 50-cent raise, and we'll still be.
Or $2, the
Or
way that
two-
the spending's going. I mean, if you don't stop spending, it's gonna continue to go up. You don't have nothing to fall back on.
A lot of what we're doing here tonight and will do is next year's. Because what we're doing now is
Yes.
trying to fit
Oh, yeah.
everything we come up with in the tax rate that we currently have, and to carry on those reductions into next year and raise tax money that will pay for, you know.
Right, and it's just like
reduce.
last year, like Bruno was saying, they made the recommendations and the selectmen didn't cut anything. So then we're in a bad situation this year. And I think what he's trying to say is that if you guys try to take some of their recommendations, maybe we won't be in this position next year.
You're absolutely right. And additionally, if we don't, like, we all want to take a little bit of, as Becky says, nickels and dimes, and we want to push some of those dimes out. But if we do too much of that, we're going to get slammed. I mean, everybody's going to say, oh, great, except now it went up 75 cents. And the other thing is, we left here on a Thursday with information that DRA had sent. No, you know, that's not a horrendous thing. Everybody makes errors. Darlene picked it up and said, you know, something. And then the next day, when she checked that morning, they said, "Whoops, there's a typo." It was a big typo. And so we left here with a 70% reduction in the tax rate on Thursday night, and by noon on Friday had.
A $3 increase.
Right.
I mean, there's just so many people in this town that are 70, 80, 90 years old. They don't have a way to get more income
That's correct.
to pay those taxes.
That's correct.
For that to go up. And I think the selectmen need to think about those people in this town, because there's a lot of them.
Kim and Cassandra and Darlene and Kathy and Robin have told us, as long as they've been here, you gotta pick up a revenue stream. You need revenue streams, because we don't have
And it's
waterfront
easy
property.
just to just keep wanting in the town, but if you don't have enough people paying, you can't have everything.
And correct. I mean, it should be and so that's why I wanted to use that thing, at least to alleviate it. And we had at the time a 4-year slight decrease, and we thought we had that. I checked with Dan, who was very interested in this, the night we left. And then the typo came and said, oh, back to the drawing boards, folks. So I understand, and I absolutely agree with you that we gotta have some cuts this year that are sustainable, and they're sustainable next year, because it's not whether
You're
the
not gonna have that to fall back on.
No.
2 more years, you're gonna have zero down.
And, you know, we get information from the state, and state money coming into the town has decreased over those several years, and I guess it's not unfunded mandates, but it's pretty close to unfunded mandates that we receive on a fairly regular basis. And I'm not especially blaming the legislature, even though he's here, but there's some friction between the municipalities and the state as to, school funding and et cetera. Sir?
Few points. Just to clarify, I don't disagree with what you said, Willie. We do need to be mindful of budgets. I can't stand the slush spending idea. I can't stand the, use it or lose it idea either, right? You try to spend close as you can to, what you budget, what you plan. I mean, things come up and whatever, but I get that. I totally do. And my only recommendation on the budget committee was maybe if we continue with it, that we offer some sort of follow-up to the department heads to talk about the recommendations. And maybe the only recommendation, maybe just say, look, we'd like to see you cut 10,000 out of your budget. Go back, see where you can find out where you cut it and come back to us. Maybe that's, but I would like to see something of that nature. The other thing is we continue to talk about spending here. We constantly cut services and constantly cut corners. We're looking at things with the Municipal Building Committee. We're realizing some of those issues that are kind of popping up now where we may have cut corners and now future taxpayers have to pay for that. So we can't continually look at that small picture and go, well, let's cut here, or cut corners, because somebody ends up paying for it. Our big issue in our town, or cost, is our school. We have this discussion every year. 45, 50 voters turn out for the school budget, and 400 turn out for the town's budget. And their budget is more than 2 times the amount of our budget. And, we're at a loss there, but we shouldn't be. We need more people to go in there and talk about, what can be done or whatever. I mean, it's tough when I served on the board for 6 years, and it's tough to, talk about cutting staffing when you're thinking about depleting education, but it does appear a little bit upside down when you look at staffing levels versus student population. And then I guess the last thing was, and you sort of mentioned it, you always talk about cutting, but we never talk about revenue. What is the town looking at when it, comes to talking about revenue? Are we doing business incentive tax breaks, to bring in that where they use less services and they don't put kids in the school? Are we talking about impact tax when housing developments go in, that are increased services like ours? I mean, that's just facts, but the town not only should, be mindful obviously of spending, but we also need to look at revenue. We never talk about revenue. We're an upside down town because we don't have lakefront property, or we don't have, big amusement park or whatever that's paying the bill. So we got to look at other creative ways to try to, bring in that revenue and be mindful of spending.
Speaking
Can I
of...
just answer him for one thing? One thing that we did learn from the budget committee, and I'll tell her, say her name, Pat Howard, says businesses do not want to come to town because of the tax rate. And she said that's one of the main reasons. You can't attract people because of the tax rate.
And that's a true statement, and why I mentioned the business incentive tax is because businesses are sometimes offered a tax break because in essence the business isn't sending somebody to the school and they're utilizing less services of the town. Not to say they're not using, they still use some services, but, and it's an incentive to bring, business in to occupy, some of those places and whatnot, provide jobs to local people, so on and so forth.
And to get onto the school thing, if you were at the school meeting last year, I don't know how many people were there. I was there, and me and my big mouth got up. And it didn't do any good.
It's tough. I served on that board for 6 years and I couldn't
Because
make
that is
heads
a
or
big
tails of
part
what
of
we
the
could
bill.
cut or what we couldn't cut, but I know there's a discrepancy when you look at staffing versus population. But that being said, I hate to see, that school's done away with the gifted and talented program. That was one of the cuts that were made. Why would you cut a program that offers, superior education to those that are really beyond that curve of learning? Now that instead that they're kind of stuck in that mid-range learning, which is above and beyond what they can do, or well below what they can do. It's unfortunate that we look to cut programs that are so beneficial to some students, but
I also
same thing, how do we
said
make cuts?
the biggest problem was the health insurance, and they don't look around, and they're tied down by a union, and I'm a union person, but you gotta face up to them. And, you gotta fight for what you can afford.
Yeah, we
And
serve.
that's way out of whack.
Can I, Cassie?
Yeah.
In a perfect world, of course, we would meet with everybody and we can discuss things in a But the fact is, we work. We don't get paid to take time to, we sat when we did the final votes, because we were tired. We want to get this done as fast as possible to give it to you guys before the end of the year, before everything comes up in December to January.
6-hour meetings.
Yeah, we were here from 4 to 10 at night.
10:30.
10:30.
According to this, it said the budget committee increased their salaries to 1,000.
I don't think that money. In a perfect world, yeah, we could, but we tried to do it in as timely a fashion as we could with what time we had. And to give you guys more time, because you guys are ultimately the ones that are doing the decision-making with the department heads.
I have a question of the budget committee. Chief Littlefield just made a statement that he would like to go back and meet again with the budget committee and say, you know, you guys maybe ought to cut $10,000. Isn't that what they did? Isn't that what you guys did?
Well, they went line by line.
It may not be 10,000. Didn't you not go line to line?
We
The
did.
different departments are saying, we recommend this. Isn't that?
No, I know, Bruno. I'm just saying, instead of maybe making, you know, and it was just a suggestion, but maybe, you know, instead of saying, you know, based on little information or not enough information, you know, to make judgments, maybe they just look at, say, look, you know, we think you can cut 18 from your budget, go back, cut it where you can cut it, and bring it back to us, you know, and instead of then, you know, necessarily delineating that, hey, we don't think you need training this year, so we're going to cut it down to that. That's just my personal thought, that's all.
Zach.
I do agree with Chief Littlefield. I almost feel like when we're voting on someone's budget, we should have a second sit down with the department head. I kind of feel like we kind of blindside them based on our cuts. Without that, I think we should be talking the same thing that you guys do. You guys get the opportunity to say, hey, I want you to cut here, and you're sitting face to
But
face.
Zach, how could we when they needed the information by Monday?
And that's what
But I think,
know,
no,
so
but I
that's
think
what-
we need to start
That's what comes
more.
out for the selectmen. We have the report, we look at it. If we have a question that they've recommended, because I did sit through every meeting last year with a number of department heads when they were and I'll give Richard, he said something about a truck. He thought he could get a better deal this way. When he presented at the budget meeting, he presented a high price on the truck because that's the only quote he had in October when we started the budget season. But as a budget committee person, I sat here when the selectman went over his budget, and he had already reduced it because he found the true price of the truck, no different than anything else you do. So when you're, and my suggestion last year was to have the budget committee work year-round, to meet once a quarter, because then as questions come up, telephone bills or whatever, you've got 3/4 of a year to find the information out instead of a month and a half. So that's a very hard push to try in a month and a half to get through that entire 6-inch budget book, try and get backup detail, meet with the department heads, and then the only thing you can do is look and say, what can the taxpayer afford? What can I pull out of my pocket? And yes, I agree. Training seems like a strange thing to pull out, but that's one of the easiest things that doesn't involve personnel and equipment. So you start looking at that stuff. But yes, I agree with you. I'd like to see the budget committee work year-round. It would be much easier to have a committee looking every quarter at costs. I do have one other question, and because Jack is here, I was wondering if I could ask it.
Sure.
And it may not, but please
Yeah.
clarify my mind before I go into budget.
Yeah.
I read in the paper that the school district, the high school, the SAU 9 is going up 9%. 3% because of health insurance and stuff.
Yeah.
That does not impact, does that impact our tuition?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So when do you receive, because no offense, when do you receive the new tuition amounts?
We got it about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Well, the way the tuition contract runs, it lags by a year.
Yep.
So it's actually based on last year's budget.
So we won't see the
Well, okay, well, we already saw an increase of $128,000 this year.
Right.
So the three factors are the amount of money, the assessed value of the property compared to the other towns, and the total number of students compared to the other towns. So you can actually lose, say, 2 students. You think, oh, our bill's going to go down, but Bartlett lost 10, and our bill actually goes up.
Right.
So it's very hard to predict.
But you have them, that's what I want
We
to
have
know.
it, but yeah, we have the numbers for
So
next year.
we can request it from the school board,
Request the,
the tuition.
oh, sure.
Okay, thank you.
You
That's
mean
all I wanted to know.
next year's tuition? It's up, I don't have the actual number, but I'm pretty sure it was $128,000 increase over the previous year.
And I'd like to ask, when are your budget hearings? When are you,
Well,
you're
they're-
starting to work on that already, I'm sure.
Yeah, we started in October, November, and we'll continue, December 20th is our December meeting, we'll continue on the budget. And in the December meeting, we will set the date of the budget hearing. We don't have it set yet.
Yeah. Mary?
Yes, thank you all, and I appreciate all the hard work that you do. We three are here because we are part of the Tamworth Economic Development Commission, which not only has the budget committee suggested that our budget is cut, but that the commission doesn't exist anymore. So after listening to tonight's conversation, I think it's very relevant that we do need an economic commission. The suggestion was that the jobs that the TEDC does go to the Tamworth Visitors Commission or Council, which I'm also on the board of, which is a tourist-based private membership group that does nothing like the TEDC does. So I think I would ask for them to just please reconsider. We'll let our department head worry about the budget, but certainly we would like them to reconsider the recommendation of, disbanding the TEDC. Just for example, what's coming up that we're working on this year is the broadband initiative with Lakes Region and statewide, trying to get some broadband here. We know we need business here. That is a huge draw. She's also been working for improved cell service. AT&T, Verizon say, this area has full coverage. It clearly does not. She's been working on the master plan with the town. We have been working with George Cleveland in their AARP initiative on aging communities, which is so important. I just was there today for 3 hours. And by February, we will have an action plan for the town to help people that can't pay their taxes and housing. And then there's also the fact that I head up this fundraiser called Wet Paint. This will be our 3rd year. The Tamworth Economic Development Commission is really the boots on the ground for me. The TDC has to run the proceeds. They're our fiduciary responsible nonprofit group. But just last year, we gave $3,000 to the food pantry and $3,000 to Arts Tamworth, which is almost double the budget that we asked the town for. So again, I'm not asking for the numbers, certainly work that out with Pat, but we would certainly ask for the recommendation that you don't dissolve TEDC, please.
And the street fair.
And the street
The
fair.
street
yeah.
fair, the business directory
Oh, yeah.
that we,
This is, there's,
That,
this is priceless.
that information would be, that will come up at, when the Board of
I can
Selectmen.
present it now, I just didn't want to,
No,
take everyone's
it
time.
really is, that, the meetings with the department head revolves around information, some of which comes from the department head's requirements as to what their plans are for the following year, some of which comes from the Budget Advisory Committee, some of which will come with individual department heads coming up to, it's almost non-monetary in that issue, and that would be information too. The whole deal. I've enjoyed sitting with 5 people as opposed to 3 or 2 when
Right.
things got tight, because there's more opinions, more ideas, and all of us are smarter than any of us. And,
Right. Well, we're just here saying that we think it's important and we hope that they would reconsider.
and we'll get the chance to do that at least twice before town meeting, and as Willie says, in the end, the people we're convincing is not the Board of Selectmen, and it's not the advisory board, and it's not the department head, it's the folks who come to town meeting, because that's the way small town democracy works. It's not representative democracy, it's straight, full tilt Jeffersonian democracy, and it's the single best example of that, I believe, in America and probably in the world. And it works real well. And it'll happen again come March,
That's right.
especially if we muzzle Willie. Did I say that? Come out of
Yes,
my
you
mouth?
did.
Did that come out of my mouth? How can I do?
But the townspeople will vote in March on your recommendation. Pretty much so, pretty much so. Let me finish.
Although we
okay?
get challenged on
You
that.
people should be voting on their recommendation. And I don't think, you didn't do that in the past.
But we
That's what
can't-
I'm asking you to do.
We can't do it on any one recommendation, we have to do it on all the information, correct?
And that's what they gave you, recommendation on every single article, every single budget, every single department. Getting late, and my wife's gonna put the lights out at 9 o'clock, and I can't get in.
Who said that? I know it's late, I know it's weary, I know you, we know who said that.
Thought you had a heated dog.
Thank you a ton for doing this with us. And again, thanks to the advisory committee for coming up with their information before all the rest of us, except for the department heads. And I guarantee you, the department heads, I don't guarantee you, but I would bet money, as long as it was yours, on the fact that every department head is spending time figuring out, you know, they want me to cut this, or they recommend to cut this, but I could probably cut this a little bit. And I think they're gonna sit down and say that, well, we're better off if we cut this to lower the X percentage than we are. And that'll be valuable information, all of us too, which may or may not fly at town meeting. Try and do our best to get something that's gonna pass and pay the bills and not send people out of their homes.
Key is you don't drive a Porsche when all you can afford is a Volkswagen.
You don't buy a Volkswagen.
Made by the same company.
Yeah.
You're buying pretty cheap.
Yeah, we're gonna recess for 5 minutes, because if you don't, Darlene will stab a pencil into my ear, and it hurts me a lot. So we'll be back at 7:20, you know, we'll just yell.
7:22.
That's fine. We're gonna proceed to the ever-exciting
Oh, perfect, thank you.
signature file.
All right, moving on.
All right.
Moving on. On we move.
I missed it, Parker.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, administrative. Could we, I trust we'll discuss this, position in a non-public one of these days?
No, we'll meet.
Where you at?
Right here. Administrative update.
You can just go to accept it and work on it out.
Not till it's signed.
Huh?
Not till it's signed and dated.
Where is it?
I'll give it back.
It was sent by email, I think.
Not until it's signed and dated.
Well, I know, but I don't know where it is.
I-
He's just saying, have him sign it before he leaves, what he was saying.
It's in here. No, it's in here.
I was gonna say, I remember reading it.
Yeah, but he sent it by
You
email.
do remember reading it? I just read this.
No. Somewhere.
It was in there.
I was gonna say, I know I definitely read something.
Oh, it does have a date on it.
Yeah.
But it needs to be signed.
It'll be another 2 minutes.
I think you can wait.
I think you can accept that.
That's what I said.
Oh, you mean wait to accept it?
Well, no, but I mean, you can wait to deal with it. Send it back.
He did.
You know, we need to,
We'll do it another time.
we'll, we're gonna call between now and then anyway, and so it will come up a week. Although we can vote to accept when signed.
No, we'll just bring it up.
Incomplete document. I don't want to deal with it. Sorry, I'm being a real curmudgeon.
What, do you speak a lawyer?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience. Sandwich perambulation. I think that we should do,
Money was, I thought that money was
It was
encumbered last year.
No, 2 years ago.
I was pretty sure you made a motion last year to encumber it while I was sitting here during the budget hearings, but it doesn't matter. I would rather encumber it than.
We can't encumber it, you'd have to raise it again. It wasn't encumbered.
Do we owe them money?
We have not gotten a bill,
Nor am I in favor of paying that bill.
Well,
and when I spoke with Sandwich, they just put extra money in their legal line. I don't know that it has to be separate.
well,
Our legal line's about out this year though. We don't have a bill coming up,
Oh, well, we'll have.
so we may.
Well, if they're gonna talk to our, if
no.
Ken's gonna
No,
send
no,
us
no.
over.
Sandwich, the perambulation, that's what I'm talking about.
No, but I'm saying, you're saying out the legal line, which was almost.
But we don't have an expense for the sandwich perambulation this year. I'm talking about for next
Oh,
year's
okay,
budget.
I thought you meant.
Do you want to put it in there? Okay, that's all I
Is
wanted to know.
We're not due for
That's fine.
perambulation. In fact,
No, but it's the,
well,
it's
I
the-
thought that failed. I thought that failed in the legislature. There was a bill to not require the perambulation.
I'm trying to recall.
Yeah, I have an idea that failed. They were close, and NHMA supported the bill, but I believe it was lost.
Well, I'm not gonna recommend that we spend any money on perambulation in the town line next year. Anyway,
well, it was just that issue.
Right.
In Sandwich. It wasn't the whole perambulation. Okay, just what, did,
I would have
Can I
a,
make a motion to that effect?
to do what?
Not spend any money on the.
We're not due, so it wouldn't come up. I mean, even if we followed the
Well,
schedule.
but are we gonna, if it comes up, are we pulling it out of our legal line? Because then it's gonna affect our legal
I
line
would
of the
have,
budget.
I would have serious reservations to pay
Okay.
that bill because all animals are equal, but some animals were more equal than others, and we were not the more equal ones.
Okay.
We had the fellow sit here and the newest addition to their board, you know. I have a problem that I'd be more than happy to discuss in non-public on a risk that it might damage somebody's reputation.
other than a member of this board.
But if you come have coffee with me when I'm not, no, I wouldn't do that. I'm not entirely familiar with all of the revisions for the health insurance costs.
Oh,
I
yes.
sent it over.
I've got some questions.
I got it, and I did, the only thing that I thought was important is in the second paragraph, I don't know if you got it in front of you, or fourth paragraph, excuse me. It starts, a two-person plan may include the following. It said, a married couple, comma, a parent and child, comma, and domestic partners, as described by blah, blah, blah. I would like to see the word in there, or, so that it doesn't read to someone as,
Wait a minute. A parent and child or domestic partner.
right,
Okay.
so that you can't be a domestic partner and a parent and child.
Okay.
Just, you know, it just,
It just cleans it up.
it just makes it so, because when I read it, I went, and, it can be and, the word and just threw, so, just being a little fussy. That was, other than that, I thought it was looked good.
Okay.
I got a question on the fifth paragraph. Do you have it? Where it says full-time employees may?
Yeah.
Just, again, to clean it up, it says, annual basis, the town office, if they provide documentation, they receive a stipend equivalent to 1/2 of the premium that the town would pay for a single individual health insurance plan. Effective 7/21/2013, the stipend offered to employees under this policy remain half of the premium that the town would pay for a single individual to be capped at $300 per month. I'd say take all that out and say, unless we're gonna change the cap, that as long as they produce it, it will be paid with a cap of $300, because we're not paying half the rate anymore, half the plan.
No.
So just take that whole thing out from receive stipend equivalent to half the premium, and the effective 7/2/13, just saying the stipend offered to employees will be capped to the amount of $300 per month. And then if you change the plan again, then you'll have to, you'll change the cap, but.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a revenue stream if we can convince everybody to do it, but I would not want to.
But because that way it's just
Okay.
too wordy in there, because it goes back to 213, and I don't want somebody coming after
Well,
saying, well, it
that's-
says that
right.
you'll pay half, so just get rid of all that and just say that the stipend will be
Maximum
capped at
stipend.
300 per month.
Okay. Any other,
That's good, thank that.
done?
One other question, because it doesn't list here. Do we have the cost for the dental plans, if it's, because we pay for both the individual and the other plans, do we have the cost for what it would be? It's not included here for what it is, because it says you can put your spouse or family on the plan,
Yeah.
but we list what it costs for families and stuff up above. Do we have that for the dental?
It's 80/20 on the dental.
No, I know what the payment playoff is, but up here
But
we
we
list.
don't have any costs up here.
Yeah, you do, you said a family plan?
No, that's for the FSA.
Okay, all right, thank
And
you.
it's optional on the dental, they don't, you know,
Okay,
have to put it if they want.
so it's 80/20 no matter what?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Well, except for those
Except for
that are modified,
full-time.
modified full-time, they're only gonna be an 80%.
Right, so that's what it
because
says here, the
they're
town
only
will pay
80%.
90/20,
Right, right,
90/10,
yeah,
and then
80
beneath
for
it
the
says
80/20.
modified.
Yep, okay.
Interestingly enough, Willie and I were at a meeting on Monday morning, talking to a neighboring selectman, and they raised their employee contribution at 20%, but only for new hires. That if you're here and you're grandfathered, then you're grandfathered. So when they raise the employee contribution, it's only for folks that got hired after that town meeting, which would seem to me to cut both ways. It would, you know, that.
What was
it's a-
their employee's contribution to begin with?
I'm sorry?
What was their employee's contribution to begin with?
They started way long ago, where at 100% where all of us started, you know? But they went from 90/10 to
80/20?
I don't know.
80/20, only for new hires when the budget passes. Which, the difficulty with that is the new hires are frequently the folks least able to pay the thing, and frequently folks with kids, you know.
I personally don't like the sound of it.
I've been thinking about, I don't know.
Anyway,
So, we already talked about that last time.
January 9th, 2019, and it's going in a good deal. I would leave it to Norman Cludia and the TVA to come up with the handout, which they're going to make widely, or at least they tell me they've in fact, he's got a draft that he's passed around to some folks to make comments
Well,
on.
it'd be good if we got that and got it to our town council before our town council's sitting there and has to work on it on the fly, if we're gonna have it at the meeting.
You know, I can probably send mine, or at least.
Norman's gonna send me one.
I'm sorry?
Norman will send me one.
Okay, and you know, you can list it as a draft, because I don't think it's gonna be changed much, and anything else that comes out can be sent along.
Are we gonna have a meeting with town council before the public hearing?
I don't think so. The whole deal is,
He was
Okay,
supposed to be
hold on, I was
putting
just
some stuff
asking.
together, so I don't.
Right, I'd like to see
don't
maybe
know
what he's putting
he's
together
putting
before we go to
Right.
public
Right.
meeting.
That's what he said when he left the last time.
So if
Right,
we could get
we haven't
that
seen anything,
before-
correct?
Right.
but I would not expect us to take a position on the
issue.
I'll ask
I just
Woody.
want it cleared up
warrant.
whether it goes to a warrant article or not. Whether it can go to a ballot vote or not. We've never got the answer on that.
I think we did.
Yeah, I think he did.
I didn't see
Said
it
no.
because it has a monetary amount. The question was, is there a
There is a
limit?
monetary amount.
Yeah, I think.
But
he's
is there a limit to what the monetary amount is
Oh.
before it goes on a written ballot? That's the question
He did
we
give us
had,
the
and
answer to that.
I didn't see it.
Oh, but it would go before town meeting, I don't think it would.
If you can put a article on that contains a dollar amount into the ballot, it has to contain a dollar amount.
But
His-
why would we do that?
Because there's a dollar amount attached with this. So we were asking if there was a limit to the, if it had to be, you know, $5,000 or if it had to be 50 cents. That's what the question was.
He's answered that already, I'll send it over to you again. One was part of it. I
Are
think
we
the answer was
interested in,
no.
would we, most of the warrants are,
My only thing is, if you put it on a ballot, it has a wider spread voting than it does at town meeting. Because more people go to vote than go to town meeting.
yeah, that's true too.
But you can't do it unless it's a money amount, and I'm not sure what that money amount has to be.
A dollar. Selectmen's, ma'am?
Yes.
Selectmen's minutes for November 29th, 2018, and November 30th, 2018, and December 4th, 2018. We're going to have to do those one at a time. Motion to approve November 29th, 2018,
Can I see those for a second?
as long as I can get a second.
Second.
Thank you.
2018.
Did we suddenly went to non-public?
No.
No,
we're
he
in
shut
public.
No, the
We're
doors
not
are
going
shut
to
because they're too
Well,
loud.
the door's closed.
But they were making
Oh, that's
noise,
because
they were
they're
afraid
making-
people couldn't hear.
Tell them to be quiet.
Go ahead.
Yell at them, man.
Let's do it quietly. The only thing that I had on that was,
It's a good thing I'm
here it
here.
doesn't say what we went in about, you know, whether just, I think this was employee review. In there, right between here, it just goes, we went in, and it gives the RSA, but doesn't say anything, you know, concrete, what it might be.
You don't have
And then we come out.
We don't usually do that.
So do we have a separate set of minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're in here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? November 30th, motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. This is a short one. Not a short minutes, but a short meeting.
Sorry.
That's fine. As a matter of fact, that's a good idea.
We didn't even try that.
December 4th, motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a separate?
Right here, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I asked the same question before I got here. and it got me
We've
so
been doing this for
confused.
weeks now,
I know,
people.
but it's just sticking out as,
Well, yeah, you know.
Non-public, November 29th, 2018.
Those are the ones.
second.
And these were,
29 and
Sealed.
sealed, I believe.
yes.
And those minutes are
Sealed.
sealed.
Yeah.
Yeah. with the motion.
Non-public, December 4th. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Did you want to see that?
Oh,
Vic?
wait, I'll take that back from you, sorry. Either wrong place.
Seconded by Casey, so.
Thank you.
Now, this Jason Bowman. No, my legal name, so I corrected.
Oh,
Accounts payable payment manifest for payment by 12/20/18. Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
sit in that chair, Becky, you gotta do it.
I know,
It's
I'm
the end of the table.
I'm getting slow here.
Accounts payable check register, December 20th,
Yep.
You can't fill.
2018.
Second.
Motion approved. Thank you.
You gonna vote on these, so we're?
We are.
As
We're
one
waiting for
group?
the
Okay.
signature here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Don't sign it till we vote.
Accounts payable check register for, this is for the December 11th, in the amount of $19,233.33. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have the one before that?
There's a manifest in there too, you need to sign, just for 2 pieces of paper.
Okay, yeah. The December 20th is in the amount of $312,387.26, the check register. And I need,
Here's the dates up here.
thank you, I need one of those back because there's a, maybe, yeah, there it is. And is that gonna do it? Accounts payable check register, December 11th, 2018, no? There's a manifest, here it is. The amount of the manifest on 12/11/18 is $19,233.33. Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Payroll authorization in the amount of $5,993.34, dated December 11th, 2018. Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Payroll authorization, I know this, in the amount of $30,166.55, dated,
September 20th.
thank you, 12/20/18. Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The list of holiday schedule from town employees, as you've read. Motion to approve. Do we need a?
Second.
All those in favor?
Wait a minute, use counter.
12. Holidays.
Now you can say all approved.
Are you done?
I counted to 12, I'm pretty proud of myself.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. An intent to cut, map 215-037-000, access off Maple Road. Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Intent to cut, for map 419, lot 7. Access is off Hackett Hill Road. This is interesting stuff. Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Intent to cut. There's not going to be any trees left. Map 407, lot 039. Access is off Philbrook Neighborhood Road. Motion to approve?
Oh, can you reread that number again?
You bet. 407.
Okay.
Lot
It's different on
039.
It's different on our agenda, that's why I was asking you. It's 404-039. Sorry. Second, 407.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Timber tax levy in the amount of $2,292.82. Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Revenue.
Are you doing both of those? Both pages?
I am.
I did. Okay.
But it's the same deal.
No,
No,
this is
you
not
have
the
to
same.
sign
deal.
both
No.
pages.
It's not the same
No,
deal?
you have to sign both pages.
Wait a minute, it's gotta be the same.
That one and then that one.
Here you go, Steve. You signed that one.
I signed that one. Did I sign this one? Looks like I signed that
Yeah,
one.
we got them both.
Look like I signed that one. Timber tax levy in the amount of $1,445.86. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Make sure everybody has a black pen on this one, please.
Black pen, I've got one in my hand. If you need one, this is
Fancy documents.
a land use change tax in the amount of
You're right.
$11,740. And I know the property. Should be map and lot. Map 413, lot 013. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And this is a double header where you sign, and we need it in ink, and if you'd like one, we've got one. Don't we have to sign this page?
No,
You
you
did the
signed
second page. Yeah, I think you already signed it.
I did. Black pen, anybody?
Got one.
Got one.
And then there's 2 pages on that needs to
Black.
be signed as well.
Can you vote on that? Is it-
Oh.
Okay.
How many signatures do we have? All that's needed?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Selectmen's update.
Not much, I'm trying to put some numbers together for budget season as well.
Now, we all, you know, you don't read the Basque History of the World anymore, you read that book that.
But as far as, yes, there is something. As far as revenue goes, I know I've asked it a couple times, and I know that Darlene has said our assessor, whatever, but I know current use has been mentioned a number of times, and I ran off the most recent current use things that date 2/16. The state hasn't updated the current use rates since 2/16. No.
They're pretty good.
I even printed off the front page so everybody could see. But I would really like to know if he can take, our assessor can take an average or something, or whatever he does. I know it's an average per acre and he makes the decision, but I'd like to know what our average is.
Sure.
If we're averaging towards the low acre side, the high acre side, or what. The second thing, I would like to see if we can contact, you can do that to Darlene. We can contact, because I can put more on first. If we can get some policies, because I know a lot of towns, as we're looking at the fire department stats and the police department stats, there's a lot of alarm calls. And a lot of towns have instituted that if they have to return to the same spot more than once, twice, 3 times, they set a number, that after that there's a charge, because it means please get your system reliable, if that's something else we can look at. Because I know a number of towns have instituted that because of a lot of alarm calls at the same place.
Oh, you mean blind alarms, there's nobody there necessarily.
Right,
It's just
It's
a
somebody that
faulty.
you get a call that, you know, the house is on fire down here, and you go up and you find out for the 8th time that the house isn't on fire. It's either a faulty alarm or somebody needs it to go somewhere.
Right.
That's another source of revenue. It's not a lot, but it's another source of revenue to look at.
Right, and they're gonna, and a little bit of a tag encourages people to fix the alarm system.
Right.
They had that early on at the light
Well, it's not
distillery
just
when
here.
they started.
I know of a town that had multiple calls
Yeah.
in a single day,
I
so
would
you
think-
start looking at that. But
I
that's
would
another
think-
revenue
yeah.
stream to look at.
You don't wanna put somebody in a vehicle
Right.
moving and jeopardize them.
So that's it on me, other than attending meetings.
I got nothing cool for this week.
Steve and I both went to the same meeting, but I've got a few things that I'd like to
Sure.
to go on here. One, I'd like to request that our budget documents not be printed in a book like this all the time. We could use them electronically, send them to us electronically. You know, I know it was a lot of work went into this book, and I think that we could save quite a bit of paper.
The good thing about this is when you have meetings though, you can scratch and change it and write what.
We got this at our last meeting.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's still a lot of pages in there, and I just find a lot of this I didn't find useful, and I'd like to get them in electronic format, because then I can go beside them and I can put notation electronically, and I can add it up electronically, because I get awful tired of using the calculator to add stuff up, and it could be done very easily electronically. Seems like a modern age. So that's one of the things that I would like to do, just to try and reduce costs and time. I would think it'd be a big time saver too, just to push the button and send it electronically. The other is I'd like a list of all revenues to date. And
Since April 1st or January 1st?
January 1st, year. Because it makes a big difference in how we budget. And the other thing I would like is, again, electronically, please, because I know it's a lot of pages, would be an itemized list of all expenses for each department.
Don't we send that out every month? That's what we send out every month. In fact, I just did it for this past pay period. The
I think you
expenditure
mean a
report.
detail list.
No, detail.
You want detail.
You mean
Sorry,
detail?
what you say detail, okay.
I want to know who was paid what for what, sort of thing. And I'm sure that's all in a spreadsheet. And
Well, it's not in the spreadsheet, but we can make you.
It's
it's
not
gonna
in the
be a
spreadsheet?
PDF. For the, out of the computer, it's gonna be a PDF.
It's not in an Excel spreadsheet,
No.
it's in the BMSI.
BMSI.
They can't, You send the BS.
I don't do a detailed
Let me-
spreadsheet one. I mean, I
Let
have.
me come in and look at it if I may.
Okay,
before
that's absolutely,
Because I don't
you can do
want to do extra, but I'm just trying to,
Because
Trying to
it
get a
is,
handle on
it's in a
things.
BSMI, they can send it out in a BSMI, but then you have to convert it to Excel, because that's a lot of work. I mean, you've sent
Yeah.
me details before, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
work to try and convert it.
so
to
maybe
Excel.
I'll
Okay.
get you some. But I mean, to do a good job on the budget, I gotta know what's been spent.
And the other thing too is if you have specific line items you want to see right away,
Yeah.
tell me what
Yeah.
they are,
Yeah.
and I can send those and we can work
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. And in 2019, at the end of each month, I'd like to see, and I know you do this, a copy of expense for each department and the income.
Oh,
Okay. We don't do the revenues for you
No,
on
we
a
don't.
monthly basis, but
We
we certainly
need,
can.
we need to start seeing the revenues. If we're gonna try and figure out how to get more of it, we're gonna see what we're getting.
Well, I was gonna ask, if we couldn't have it.
I can do it
bottom
the same thing as we do.
Well, bottom line, that we get an expense and an income on the same sort of
Right.
page. Here's
Same
our
page.
expenses for this month, total expenses for this month. I know you do it in the AP form and the totals that way, but I just like,
It's
maybe
the-
in your
it's-
report, this month's expenses were, 2-point total, whatever the total
Mhm.
was, and this month's revenue was such and such.
Okay.
And the other thing Becky already mentioned was the charges for inspections for police reports and false alarms.
We
Yeah.
do they do charge for their reports, but we do get
For the
revenue for that.
reports?
Yeah, people ask for reports, for police reports, they do charge for that.
Yep, well, I just don't see any income.
Well, and that again, covers revenue.
Right.
Yeah, it's in there,
That's what
it's
I'm
in the
looking for.
revenue
Well, no, I
section,
mean,
yeah. But you'll
that's
see it, yeah.
what I'm looking for. And then I'd like a list of all the nonprofits that own property in town with their assessed value and what they make in payments to the town, in pilots or otherwise.
Yeah, I'd like to
what
see
otherwise is there?
taxes.
Taxes or donations.
If they're not on a pilot, they must pay property taxes unless they're a 501(c), and then they don't.
Right,
No,
and
if
they
they're
own-
nonprofit, if they're a nonprofit, they don't pay taxes unless it's a pilot.
Right. But they might, somebody might,
They
some
might,
organization might give you a donation.
Right.
Right.
I just,
In lieu of taxes or whatever.
right, I want to start, we're looking at where we can get money from. Let's make sure that they're following through with their 501c3 pledges and everything else, because otherwise, we need help. And could you also ask for DRA for our permanent record?
I have it.
You do have it, good. Great, thanks.
And those two meetings you went to, did you have a comment or two?
I'll let you speak first.
Willie and I went down to Center Ossipee Fire Station to meet ostensibly with the fire chiefs concerning the ambulance contract. And it was an interesting conversation, but there wasn't much movement, except that I think there was some discussion. The ambulance contract is 2021. And what they're looking for is by April of this year to put stuff together to the basis of which would be for the, put it out to bid. There are some towns that would like to use the clause of a 5-year extension. I think that's not in the best interest of Tamworth, but, I'd be alone on that. All right, I haven't asked anybody else what they think, but Tamworth has some peculiar or unique sources of revenue for that company, and we pay far more for the basic infrastructure in terms of rent than 4 of the 6 towns, some of which pay nothing for the, to make sure there's an ambulance, whatever. And we asked some questions and got some answers about how many ambulances are housed at the local, at the place they're renting down on 41? 41?
Yeah.
And what they're used for and when they're available and stuff, but Effingham has some similar problems as we do. We pay an awful lot of money for ambulance, and I think it's, well, some people are overwhelmingly pleased, financially and in terms of service.
Can I ask a question that you just made a statement on? You said Tamworth pays an overabundant share of rent for the property being rented for the ambulance. Was that not originally addressed in the original contract, how they had to, I mean, I guess I'm confused because we shouldn't be paying any more for rent. It should have been all discussed 5 years ago when the contract came out.
It was, and they went from 2 locations, that we modified that contract or allowed them to go to 1, because they were gonna be paying double rent. The difficulty is, when it came down to it, we lost a vote, 5 to 1, and John and Jim and I thought, wait a minute, this is wrong that we're paying what we're paying, because the entire divvying up of the thing was based on either population or number of calls. Mistake, because we have a lot of 25 and a lot of 16. So there's going to be more calls, which means Tamworth pays an inordinate amount to have to have an ambulance service. There's one town who pays $9,000 a year, and we pay $143,000 a year, based on, no matter how you do it. If you do the population, we're the second highest, and if you do the number of calls, we're the second highest. Ospey clearly is first. They're down to, what, $600,000 a year?
But I just wanted to be made clear that they didn't increase their contractual price because they went with a second building.
They reduced the...
In between the contract, when you guys first signed with the contract, it was one house, they found out they couldn't cover everybody.
Right.
They housed in the second place. They didn't modify the contract, didn't increase the price of the ambulance contract because they went to the second housing.
They only have one house.
In fact, we reduced it when they went to 1.
There's one house.
It's all on 41 now?
Yep.
Okay.
There's five ambulances.
Well,
yeah.
just that comment threw
But the
me off.
difficulty is, we don't, if it was a regional school or something, well, no, bad example.
Yeah.
But there are a number of towns whose per capita contribution, there's towns that we end up paying X many dollars, 100 and something per call, and there are other towns who might pay $12.33.
It's like the schools, based
Because
on population and growth, yeah.
You absolutely have to spread out the cost of rental and equipment, and then, even if there's a per call charge that the town gets beat up on, which it shouldn't be, we brought that up, and I can remember John saying, you're right, and you folks aren't doing it, but we'll never win the vote. And he was absolutely right, because we would have not just lost the vote, we would have gotten laughed out of the plate, well, 5 to 1.
Well, I'm saying it's just like governing the school district. We don't have much say in their increase in costs.
Correct.
Bartlett loses 10, our tuition rate goes up because they gotta make that money up somewhere.
Correct.
It's
Only
not-
this is a
But I was
permanent,
confused when you
long-term thing.
said we're paying for a second rental place, and that's why I was gonna say I didn't think we renegotiated the contract. Anyway, okay, sorry, thank
And
you.
the other part of this is, we are the only town that actually has a certified ambulance to transport. So we become the backup.
With the mutual aid, we're the only
Mutual
one
aid.
that can offer it. Although I think
They have
Madison
rescue
has one in
trucks.
mothballs that they're not running. I mean, I don't know what he said when he said that. Effingham can't, they can't meet the time requirements to Effingham, and they told us flat out that they can't meet the time requirements to Wanalampson. Of course, there's officers in the rescue squad that can, they've got a resuscitator, they've got all sorts of stuff, they've got training, but we know that they can't make Wanalampson. I'm surprised they can make the top of Brown Hill Road, the height of Brown Hill Road. I don't think they can in the required time, but maybe nobody gets called. They also, interestingly enough, we found that they send out 2 ambulances on automobile calls. They send out 2 ambulances if they have knowledge that the call coming in is a highly at-risk person, cardiac history, or that they're familiar with. On Cleveland Hill Road, there were 3 ambulances parked there 2 weeks ago. Ours, and the two that they sent, which I can
But-
understand.
But I understand that Tamworth has an ambulance, but when Tamworth is responding to an accident or a medical call, they are responding as a rescue squad,
Correct.
not an ambulance. So there's a big difference there to say, so what appeared at the site was a rescue squad and 2 ambulances.
Yeah, point well taken. Although there's some nice equipment in that and some and
I'm
some
not
good training.
disputing that,
Yeah.
but when Tamworth responds, they're responding as a rescue squad. Every town around us has a rescue squad, they just don't have the ability to transport. So that same accident, if it occurred in Effingham, could have resulted in a rescue squad and 2 ambulances showing up at the same thing, but it's a
Correct.
rescue squad that's responding.
I'm with you.
Right, my point is that if they are occupied, one of their ambulances in Wolfboro and one's in Conway, Tamworth's the one that gets called for transport.
And
We get called for transport,
I think
not
there's a
for-
revenue stream there.
And we're starting a
And I
revenue.
know it's, and that's what we need an update on, is that revenue stream from the billing.
So-
Yeah, we've got nothing.
We
Maybe
can't,
we
I
can
talked
ask
to you last
again.
night.
Maybe we can.
We've got nothing.
From
We've got no
ambulance?
money yet.
From the ambulance?
That first time, that's all we've had so far. And we only billed out the 7 times. They've done no other transport since.
Okay,
So I've
Thank
been
you.
told.
I can't get revenue from Tamworth response from the ambulance company. No, we don't keep it that way. I asked for 3 quarters in a row.
they wouldn't, they build their revenue, because they're a private entity, they don't break it apart per town of what they're collecting from each person.
But they have to provide, contractually, they have to provide a substantial number repairs to the ambulance, cost of maintenance and upkeep. There's a ton of information that
Well,
they
they
have to-
but that would be to all 6 towns, and that's what I said. If another committee starts with this ambulance or whatever, instead of just signing the contracts with each town, there should, like you said, there should be a universal committee formed of the 5 towns, that if there are any complaints, they go to that committee instead of coming to Tamworth and saying this, going to Effingham and saying that. It should be almost a regional mutual aid overseeing of the ambulance service.
Except the only thing the other 5 towns can provide is first responder.
No. The overseeing of the contracts.
Ambulance contract as a whole.
So that, like the information you're trying to get, what they might provide you might be different than OSPI, might be different than this. They're a business, so I'm saying that if you could form a mutual aid ambulance committee, whatever you want to call it. So any complaints from any town goes into this committee, and then this committee sends a formalized letter. So there's one pipe stream instead of you complaining about one thing in Effingham. Then there's a group that knows that there's one.
What we're trying to do is come up with each town coming up with what they need for that RFP, whereas, we need coverage to the entire town on the X many minutes. Effingham can put in for that, but they're not gonna get it, so Effingham's gonna need, the time limit is this time, and I think they're willing to do that to cover it, because they're not gonna buy an ambulance, or train a squad. But what we have to do is, I believe the folks are talking about, we have to have a contract with perhaps 6 different quirks to the thing that are gonna go out in that RFP, although we haven't made very much progress on that. The other thing we did was go to the Lakes Region Planning Commission regional thing. We should have asked Richard while he was here. They're gonna gather information for road striping, regional. They're working on school buses. I
Which
don't-
we're not in.
I knew it, yeah, we haven't supplied the information, I don't think our school would be interested. They're doing the broadband, but,
Not necessarily.
we thought it was bad, and it's worse.
Mhm.
Although I read with interest that in today's paper, I think Rochester has a competitive thing. Not consolidated.
Yes, they've got a billboard as you're heading down Route 16. I
They have
can't
the
remember what
other
it is. Business something.
Comcast.
Yeah, but they've also got another system that's supplying businesses with broadband. I'll look
Yeah,
at the
but
billboard
it's
again, I can-
competitive with whoever's in Spectrum.
Mhm.
Let's hear it for that.
Competition's good. And the cell phone coverage data map basically looked like we'd have to send to the FCC our data and say that they're not in compliance with their agreement with the FCC. And maybe the FCC at some point in the next 100 years would say, oh, that's right, they're not. So we're gonna slap their wrist and make them do something.
Although the FCC might say, yes, they are, because on this block AT&T works, and on this block Verizon works, 100% covered.
Right.
And if you've got a Verizon phone and you walk down the street, SOL. And I went to the TVA, and I went to the TCC, and I learned to talk in alphabet letters. The TVA, it was much of what they were doing here when folks fessed up that they were, believe it or not, they staying with the TVA, but they'd had it with and you know, a huge deal with that is, if somebody's in arrears, your neighbors sue you. And if, you know, that's
That's the way with any homeowners association too.
right, but neighbors suing neighbors is where people hesitate to do that.
And
And maybe-
what's the difference between us and those people? We're not their neighbors?
We don't share the same sewer.
Anyway,
No,
I think they have at least one account in arrears, and they've never, I don't know what it's
I'm well
worth.
aware.
And they say, well, you know, the town would just slap a lien on them, and you're not gonna sell your house until you
They
pony
already
back.
have a lien on
That's right.
Sorry?
them. They already have a lien on them.
They would?
They already do.
They already have a lien on that house.
Oh, do they?
Yes, they do. As part of the original agreement when it was set up, they got a lien on that house, so that house will not get sold without that bill getting paid. No different than the town.
Right, they said that that was the only enforcement that they had, but to do that again, I think they would want to rely on the town to do that, because neighbors suing neighbors, they just, I guess, hesitant
Isn't
to
a suit,
proceed.
it's, you know, you bought a product and you haven't paid for it. The bill's due.
Get close.
Well, they've tried that, tried that way, and I think they were not successful.
Yeah.
And TCC is being TCC, and it was a great meeting, it's always interesting. Ned Beecher brought cookies, so, I mean, how bad can it be? And that's what I did.
Good.
Part-time handyman position.
That was just it, so we don't forget to talk about it.
Okay, I think it's
Anyway,
premature.
It is.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that.
Well, it is and it isn't. They
Right,
want to
it's
save us
right
money.
around the corner, we're gonna be talking about it.
But it's during
So,
budget season, I
right.
think. It's a
Right,
budget
we need
season.
It's a budget thing.
I make a motion to go into non-public RSA 91A:32A.
I'd like to see if we could do it.
Oh, public, I'm sorry.
First, just so that they can leave.
Public comment.
Chairman.
I would like to say, thank you. I was the chairman of the budget committee, that the people on the committee it was a great committee. Everybody worked hard, we worked well together. I am very disappointed in the department heads, nonprofits. We kept it above the level that it was nothing personal. We didn't go after anybody. It was a department, we looked at the line items, we looked at what was spent, what wasn't spent. We dropped Darlene's budget, it was always the town administrators. It wasn't Kim's budget, it was the tax collector. And to see people are angry at us for our recommendations, which makes anybody watching this video, who would want to serve on a committee with such cranky, angry people? You know, I mean, they're taking it out on us like we're attacking them personally.
I promised Darlene that that wouldn't happen, because the only thing was to invite everybody to the preceding public discussions using your information and
Right.
getting all the information together. But, you know, and that there were times when folks just kept going while we were trying to, but I understand, you
Right,
know,
I
it's a
mean,
big deal.
And I
it-
think during the conversations with them, and we want to come and, you know, we were given the information, we researched, Darlene was great with giving us the information when requested, meeting with the department heads. A lot of times I would say to them, show us the data, show us the increase. And they didn't have the supporting evidence. So if they don't have that evidence, we can't, you know, there's nothing for us to do but say, there's no increase, so why do you need that, you know?
I thought that, I was taken aback by some of the early conversation, but as the question and answer wore on, people seemed to temper their temper.
As each person keeps getting this report, it's not getting easier for us.
Oh, no, they all have it, don't they?
Well, it keeps coming out to other people, and it's, it hasn't been really a nice.
It's been nasty.
You mean the employees of the department, not the department head?
We're not saying any names or anything because it's, but I'm just saying, they should not take it out
Absolutely
as
not.
personal. We were assigned to look at the budget. We did our work with a great group of people.
We were headhunting.
Yeah. It was a witch
Is that what
hunt.
you
It was, we've heard it all, that.
I've heard none of that, but
Well,
tonight.
you were on the budget
You just
committee.
did.
Yeah.
Tonight I did, where people said, why didn't they do this, why didn't they do that? Well, why didn't you ask them to do it?
Right.
And I thought that the folks who had their backs up on it were more reasonable as the discussion
Well,
went on.
and another thing, one thing I did want to state that wasn't in the report, that the 5 people that were present during the voting was Madeline Caslin, myself, Rachel, and Zach, and Jim Hidden did not partake in any of the votes. I didn't have that in the report. Some of the information we received, we heard different information tonight.
What?
So, you know.
Oh, I mean, speaking with the department head.
Right, you know. So what we voted on was the information we were given, the questions that were answered.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to say is another revenue source that we did do a little research on was for the fire department with their inspections. If insurance companies are looking for inspections, that can be another revenue source.
Oh, you know, local insurers are bringing somebody from Portland to do a sizable amount of this town, or at least folks that are needed.
Because they're certified fire inspectors. They're certified by, what's the fire national, NAFP? And
Are our folks?
Firefighter 1, fire inspectors number 1, I believe, I don't know, because we don't see the credentials.
That'd be worth asking.
I think there's only one that can do the inspection.
No, there's 3.
But
3 department
But a
heads?
lot of insurance
Fire
and
board,
loan,
a fire
a lot of,
and Rich.
a lot of insurance loan companies now will not accept a local. They want a certified fire inspector, like certified house inspectors, to go in and check properties in order to insure them, and that requires a certification higher than an F1 or an F2.
Did you say we had 3 on the force that could do it? Or 3?
In varying degrees.
Yeah.
So they can do certain things.
It was Jim Bowles, Rich Holgren, and Zach.
Right.
The 3 of them.
And a 1 versus a 2.
But we can, do you have that list of who can, what, or we
Well, I
get
think the
that
fire
from-
wards could give it to you.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Because Jim Bowles was the one that we asked about that at the budget hearing. We asked, you know, because Richard stated he was so far behind, and I asked, are there other people there that could help with the inspections? So,
And Jim was
Jim
acting
could,
chief
and
at
Zach
when Richard was overseas, Jim was in fact.
But again, we might be able to ask the fire wards if, 1, they charge for an inspection, if somebody says, can you come out and inspect my house? And 2, what do they charge? Is it the going rate around the area, if that's the same rate?
And we also mentioned about
Unless
the
it's set by the
911
state.
signs, you know, the fire department selling those.
There was a rescue squad, and part of the hazard mitigation plan was to get one on every house in town, to marketing's everything, I guess, and to try and get folks to sign on for their safety and for the crew's safety and et cetera.
So you're saying that they sell those signs to the public?
Rescue squad does.
Yeah, it was like $16 a
Okay,
sign or
rescue squad
something.
So we see that as a revenue stream?
Well,
No,
I
it's,
think
it's
the
it's
money
not their
goes to-
squad, it's their,
It's the nonprofit.
it's their nonprofit.
Yes.
Friends of the Rescue
The Friends
Squad.
of the
or
Rescue
some-
That was what I was gonna
Okay.
ask, because I can't find that.
Yeah.
It's a 501c3 setup, it's
I
nothing to
know
do
what
with us.
I know
Yeah.
what it's supposed to be, I can't find it. I
Similar
went
to the
looking
Friends of
for
the
it.
fire company.
Well, it might
Firemen's-
not exist anymore when we.
I don't, that's my question, because I could not find it.
Well,
There
it's still
was
selling the
one
sign,
here up
so-
until 2007, but it's not.
Oh, well,
on-
the merger was a year and a half ago. So there should
The
have been one in
Friends of
8,
the-
9, and
but
10,
it
and
wa-
11,
But it
and
wasn't in
Jack
the
and
state
Queen and
records,
King,
so,
and Ace, or whatever that goes.
so we can ask them about that.
That was all.
Is there further
Thank you.
public comment?
Yes.
Sir?
Earlier, you mentioned modified part-time. What is it?
I mentioned it, and it is people that are not working 40 hours a week, but are working 32 hours is considered modified,
Part-time.
modified full-time, I guess.
Modified
Oh,
full-time,
modified
not
full-time.
And they do not get the same benefits as a full-time. They get the modified benefits now.
Do they get paid holidays?
Modified, yeah.
Just some
So
holidays?
there's
How would you
12 they
modify the
get.
holiday?
They only get paid, they don't get paid for 8 hours, they get paid for 6.2, I believe,
Well, first of all,
hours.
why are you doing it and who started it? We never had that before. Talk about saving money or spending money.
Because we could get people we wanted in certain jobs cheaper than hire them full-time. Because as Darlene says, you don't, we have people that you don't pay retirement on, you don't pay, they have to pay majority of the health insurance if they're in, they pay.
But you never offered that before. Why are you offering it now?
Because
It was a couple years ago.
It was a couple
yeah.
years ago
It was
that
a
that
couple-
started.
It was a couple years ago.
It's
that
been
started.
3 or 4 years anyway, that there's been someone here that was modified. And when I went through the insurance, there was a whole scheme thing, and I said, well, that looks complicated to me if they're working 4 days a week. That's 80% of the time, so let's do it 80-20. Let's,
I believe, Bruno, that went into effect in 2017. Because, as Steve said, there was somebody that they wanted to put in a job that became,
didn't want to
that
do
It was
full-time.
16.
who has some experience with it
That
now.
couldn't work because they're on a retirement?
I'm sorry?
I just know that that's when the modification came up, because I asked the same thing in the meeting, and it was 16 or,
Is it public knowledge how many modified full-time or part-time there are?
3, 2?
Two.
Two in your office and one?
No.
no,
One
just
in
2
my office,
total.
2 total.
I thought there was only one, but there's 2.
Kim?
No, the
Transfer station.
Yeah,
Oh. Yeah.
So 2 people are working 32 hours and we pay 80% of their insurance?
Correct. Where we're
And a
paying
full-time-
we're 90% of full-time.
Full-time works 40 hours and gets 90%.
Right. This year.
Yeah, it hasn't been,
This
it
year.
hadn't
The
been that
thing
long.
was different last year, it was 7%. So
For both?
90,
No, one
No.
was 7, and the other was some formula.
Yeah,
It was a
for
weird
a
formula,
full-timer
that's what it
last year on, we did increase the cost to the employees for the health insurance this year, because it was at 7%. Huh?
And-
I hope so.
And
It was
also
a
chose a different
7%, we
plan,
jumped
less
to 10%.
expensive.
yeah, cheaper plan.
A less expensive plan, and had them contribute more.
So the cost of healthcare is going down for them?
About 38%. I mean, 38,000 for everybody total around there.
So you're saving $38 a
Correct.
person?
No,
No,
38,000.
38,000 for health,
Overall.
okay.
Overall.
Overall, in the whole.
How much is the whole thing?
A ton of money.
I know mine is.
I know what it started at, I don't know what it's at
Yeah,
now.
this year it was like, it's 11,000 a month, or 14,000 a month.
think it's 14,000
14,000 a month
times
for
12
dental and
months.
medical.
So it's around $160,000.
And that's not what the town's paying, that's the total
That's
premium.
total premium, right, around $160,000, $170,000.
But you're paying 90% of that.
This year coming, yes.
That's one heck of a
Well, no,
benefit,
that,
eh,
it
isn't
depends on what the plan choices are too,
Yeah.
if it's single
Right.
versus family versus, so, right, roughly, it was around, right around that
What-
78%, 178,000.
Speaking of insurance, I've got another question. I'm hearing, for a while now, I've been hearing about you guys are giving a stipend for people that don't participate in the health care insurance because their wife or their husband is why are you doing that? I've never even heard of that before. And I've negotiated a lot of contracts.
Because
Never heard of it.
it's more common than you think. I have some out-of-state experience, and, you know, that's a deal. But what it is, it saves the town 50% of whatever the, you know.
No, it don't.
Yeah.
Because they're covered somewhere else. You could save 100% by not offer them a stipend.
And you don't offer it to them,
Well,
they say, I want the full insurance.
Sure.
That's the name of the
They
game.
could double, you know, you can carry 3 insurance policies.
They
if you
should,
want.
they
Yeah,
should
but
have to
you can
require,
have a policy that you
prove
can't
to
have
you.
double coverage.
when you worked in Rhode Island, because I had health insurance, they didn't give it to her. She had to prove that I didn't have health insurance. We happen to have it, so she didn't get a stipend, she didn't get a bonus at the end of the year.
Well,
and the contracts I negotiated for years, was it a stipulation? You talk about saving money, you guys are wasting money.
No, we're not. Because
You're not?
No, because in this state,
Tell me why, show me how.
you got insurance, and we say to your wife, and she's an employee also, or she's got insurance someplace. So we say to you, hey Bruno, you want to be on your wife's insurance, or we'll pay you half the insurance cost for you to not sign up with us. And we've just saved half a human being.
Not half,
Not
we're
even
paying
close to half.
300. But Bruno, he's right, in this state, kind people who have insurance companies don't go to their employer. They're, say you've got the insurance, because they don't want to get in the battle between the two insurance companies fighting. So I'm not going to have you cover me and me cover me. So
But I don't think you're supposed to have double insurance coverage.
you can, just like you can with Medicare and everything else. But the thing of it is, what he's saying is, so you have your insurance, so your company says, okay, we'll charge you this, self-insured. But if you go to a second person or a family, you're going to pay $500 a month to carry the family of the second person. She has a job that says, okay, we're going to pay for your insurance, but if you put your family on, it's going to be $500 or something like that. So what happens is both of you decide to go with your own company's insurance. What Steve's saying is the way they save here is the employee is saying, fine, I'm going to my wife's, so you're not going to have to spend $1,400 a month on me. They could say, never mind, my wife's got hers, I want mine, so you're going to pay for.
Well, you could say you got your wife, we ain't giving you the
But you
$1,400.
can't, but you
They
can't do that.
Do that.
You would like to do that, but the town can't.
We can't.
You can't.
Private entities can do stuff like that, I don't believe.
But you didn't always do it, so that's something new the state just
Well,
passed?
it's been done for
it's
as
been
long
done
as
for
I
years.
remember
Quite a
here.
long time.
A long time.
I think we have one
One.
person who takes the
No, we got a couple
stipend.
that take
Five.
stipends.
5. When I started,
Went from 1 to 5, real
but when I
quick.
started, it was less than that. It was fewer.
Less than 1?
Yeah, that's why we didn't have insurance at all. I mean, it does, as odd as it sounds, it does save the town money.
Because you're paying out $300 instead of paying out $1,400 a month because they decided, never mind, you're going to pay for
They don't
me.
sell it.
Right.
It's analogous to somebody's going to retire in 3 years, and the school district goes to them, or the state goes to them and says, hey, we'll give you $2,000 if you go next year. And
Keep
the
your
per-
shirts and your blouses buttoned, because that way your hat won't pop up, you got a big hat. Seriously.
Standard operating
Are you
procedure.
gonna lock the door pretty soon?
Further public comment? Bruno's not
You're all-
included.
all right.
I'm not leaving because I'm upset, I'm leaving because you're going non-public.
I don't think we are. Are we going
Yeah.
non-public?
2
Yeah, you
seconds.
Now you're telling me.
Oh,
Yes, we are, Bruno, we are going into
we almost did
non-public.
this. 8:30.
I tried that.
Yep, I want to get
Do I
done.
get up, stand up, or do I sit down?
We're non-public.
Anything you want to do.
Motion to go to non-public for RSA 91A, colon 3, Roman numeral 3, subset A.
I'll take them home to you.
Bruno.
Yes, yes, yes.
Roman numeral 2,
Second.
bottom.
Yeah, every single.
Yes.
Yes.
Municipal contract.
Right.
Hi, Rachel.
Robin,
Yeah, absolutely.
yes,
Bye, Melanie.
thank you.
Is that fun, Robert?
No, I forgot to.